Afternoon intuitives. This video is going to be a little different because it's not just focused on my thoughts. This is going to be a lot of thoughts of four women that I work with at the current restaurant where we all work as servers. So while we were in between our break between our double shifts, the four of them and myself as the only male had a pretty candid and open conversation. We have similar politics, similar views, and the topic of feminism and double standards came up. And they were very surprised and happy to hear my views on the subject. But I said to them, they're like, where are the other guys like you? I'm like, INFJ males, about 0.5% of the world population, so there's not many. But damn it, we do exist. We're like the thylacine. Still there. Just, can't find it. They think we're gone, but we're not gone. Anyway, so this is going to be an INFJ male's support of feminism, which I do support. And yeah, there's many different versions of feminism, I guess, out there, different ways. But in this video, I want to talk like in the context as me and these four women were speaking, and they basically said the four of them, view feminism as there being no double standards and a male and a female having the same opportunity regardless of their gender and thus the same pay in a professional setting and not be treated differently. And I don't know how anybody can argue against that. I mean, what's the problem, old boys? You think you deserve special treatment because you got something swinging between your legs or because who your grandpappy is? Like, sounds like someone who doesn't want to compete in a meritocratic system. And there's slowly things are, I believe, changing for the better in a lot of industries. I mean, you all know my story with the fire department, but I will say, in the fire department, at least all the ones I've tested for, male or female, you take the same physical ability test, everything weighs the same, you have the same time limit that you have to pass fail. You do this course of 8 or 9 events within the parameters of the rules and within the time limit. And if you pass within that, you pass and you move on to the oral interviews. If you don't, you don't. But male or female, regardless of size, age, anything, it's the same. And when you're in the fire academy, the training's the same. Now, I was in with female recruits. They were expected to perform the same tasks and drills with the same amount of like weighted hose, for example. It's exactly the same. The men and women, you're trained right next to each other. Really, the only time you're separate in the fire academy is when you're in your respective locker rooms. So, given all the problems that the fire department has, at least that is true. Oh, and your pay is exactly the same as well. And we compared just to make sure. But, that's just one little anecdote of mine. But this is very much a systemic problem. And you see, even to this day, in a lot of fields, maybe not so much in the public sector because I don't think they can get away with it anymore. But in the private sector, you see, men doing the same job as females and making more money for reasons. And those reasons are usually not explained. A lot of times, I know some anecdotes from people, and a lot of times it also has to do with the male having the all-powerful nepotism in, which trumps every card. Nepotism trumps every card. And a big point of this conversation then is also got into politics, and me and these four women have similar political views, and we're all fans of Jimmy Dore, Dore, Krystal, and Kyle Kulinski. Kyle Kulinski, INFJ, by the way. And the conversation came to their recent interviews, both of them, Krystal and Kyle as one, and then Jimmy Dore as an other. And both recently had actor Rose McGowan on. And she was describing the absolutely abhorrent actions that happen to many women, particularly early in their careers when in the film industry. And I don't know, after hearing her stories, others from like Mila Kunis, Emilia Clarke, whomever, there's dozens of them out there. How can that not enrage you? Is what I'll ask my audience. How does that not, like, kick up your righteous anger just out of sheer empathy and hatred of exploitation and double standards, which we as INFJs and ENFJs, have? Those are things that set us off. Doesn't matter who the people involved are. Double standards, exploitation, no, not on our watch. And many, in these times, as Ms. McGowan said in her interview, these women are forced to perform nude scenes and still paid less than their male counterparts. What the hell? Like, really? And the standard of, they're basically told that as females being exploited and being strong-armed, forced to perform nude is something they just have to put up with. Like, oh, it all goes through. This is, it's how the old boys run this bitch. And if they speak up, try to say no, career's over. Done. We'll just throw in another girl. You're not going to play ball. Like, you have no right to say no. You have no right to stand up for yourself. You have no right to call out these senior people in this industry. And that really resonates with me because I went through the same thing, in the fire service, where whatever they did to me, bullying and hazing wise, was their right because they're them. I have no right to speak up. I have no right to ask for anything. And, we all feared retaliation when we did, which did happen. But I don't want to get too off on that. But I do want to give a little shout out to my classmates and thank them for speaking up when they all feared that, the old boys system of the fire department would come for them like they did. But their integrity is something I'll never forget. So, even though I'm booted out and I can never work there again, the bond between those men and women and me will never be broken. The good old boys couldn't do that. We all still trust each other. That's what happens when you go through hell together. But back to my point about Ms. McGowan's interview. Double standard galore. And correct me if I'm wrong, where in all the hundreds of movies I've seen in my life and like cable shows on like Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, all that crap, but how often do you see a naked man with a heart on? You don't. I never have. Well, why isn't, when the reason is like, oh, these beautiful young naked women gets people to watch. Well, wouldn't the reverse be true? Wouldn't, you know, young, fit, naked men get women or gay men to watch? Like, if the whole point to do it is to raise the awareness of the movie or show and get people to watch it and thus get it to be a success, what's with the double standard? There's, just as much, or I think slightly more, women in the world than men. So you're not doing anything to entice half your potential audience. But, that's just crap. It's because they feel they have the right to do that to the female actors because it's their club and they have to play ball if they want in the club, more or less. So the women at my job and I were talking about that, and one of them brought up that how a lot of times in movies and shows set in like antiquity, like ancient Greece, Egypt, Rome, or in like a medieval setting or a fantasy setting, a popular theme is the brothel scene, and there'll always be some powerful man and like 6 or 7 naked women lined up completely naked, and then he goes through and looks them up and down and then judges what he perceives as minor flaws in them. I mean, think about how fucking terrifying that must have been for those women. You're standing on a set, it's being filmed for the whole world to see. Not only are you completely naked, but there's some guy looking you up and down saying things like, that breast is a little lopsided, or whatever, your smile's crooked, you have a snaggle tooth, whatever he may perceive. And that's going to be out there for the world to see for the rest of your life. And to the best of my knowledge, that's something that hasn't happened to men. So, as a man who doesn't believe in double standards, I have a little question for anybody who's watching. You're not going to see it, but I'm going to say it out of principle anyway. How come, where are my INFJ and ENFJ brothers, that happen to be actors? Shit like this has had to affected you indirectly, be it a girlfriend a wife, the mother of your child, a sister, a good friend you may consider a sister, you have to know someone that this was done to. Like, it's just law of probability. Why don't you insist to help end the double standard? Now, what I mean by that is, how about you do a brothel scene where it's a powerful woman and 7 naked men lined up? Now, I understand, just saying that. I'm not saying like an actual sex scene, because that could end in a sticky situation, and I'll be honest, I don't know how anybody does then. That just seems cringy and robotic. Again, INFJ. But, a brothel scene of, say, like 7 men lined up, completely naked, full-on hard-ons, and some woman comes by and literally stares you up and down and comments on what you're packing downstairs. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? But yet that double standard still exists. No men are put through that. Where are my INFJ brothers with integrity that want to do something like that? Because even in this era of Me Too, the women who have spoken up about how they were exploited and forced to do nude scenes at the, or lose their career forever. So, dream job, be exploited. Trust me, when your dream job's on the line, you'll put up with just about anything. I did. So, you feel like you can't do anything about it, or you'll lose that dream job, that thing that so much of your self-worth and sense of identity is wrapped up in. That much I understand. But why not do this scene? 7 naked men being judged, And there's got to be an actor out there willing to do that. And to prove I'm not a hypocrite, it's like, who's this nobody running his mouth? I'll volunteer to be one of the extras. Actually, I'll volunteer to be the extra who stands right next to you on center stage. I can't act, but I can stand there naked in a scene in that kind of context. If you want to call me a hypocrite for making this video, that's fine. I'll do it with you. We'll make sure the set's warm, though, because, want to be at one's best. But I don't understand why, even in this day and age, that hasn't happened. Not just out of change in the industry and change in the culture, but I'm saying men requesting something like that to help break a double standard so their female colleagues stop being judged so much. Because you hear women talk about how years, decades, there's women out there talking about 20 years after they filmed the nude scene, that's all people want to talk about. That's out there forever. And some of the men in that industry act like it's no big deal. Oh, it's just, that's just part of the industry. Everybody does it. No, most females have to do it. Men don't. So if it's no big deal, Mr. Veteran Actor, man up. I'll stand next to you. Or are you afraid you don't measure up? That's just my offer. But double standards in general, I find abhorrent. And they have to be called out. Speaking up about any double standard, whether it be bullying, hazing, sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, racism, sexism, whatever it may be, there's so many. Speaking out has to be done, because when you want to fix something, you have to point out the problem first and foremost. You have to make people aware of it, and when you come out and tell your story, it'll resonate with people. People who have been through similar events will want to speak up. People will start to come forward. Everybody's afraid to be the first one. That's just human nature. To be the first one swinging a hammer at the wall that is protecting the old boys club. I truly believe more people want these double standards to be destroyed than to keep them in place. But those that are keeping them in place feel this entitlement to treat us like that because nobody calls them on it. And yeah, some of us are going to have to risk our careers to do the right thing. I can say it, I did. It is highly unlikely I could ever get hired in the IAFF, which is all the professional fire departments in the United States and Canada, because me speaking out and telling my truth, but it had to be done, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to anybody else. I wouldn't be able to live with that on my conscience, and it's all true, and it's my story to tell. And those who bullied and hazed me cannot take that away from me. They're not immune just because of who they are or potentially how many years they served on the department. So I ask all of my INFJ and ENFJ brothers and sisters and anyone else who comes across this, Let's keep breaking double standards. Like I said, let's make an example. Start with the double standard of Hollywood nudity. And if you're an actor by chance, you stumbled across this because you clicked the wrong video, like I said, I'll stand right next to you. That's all I can do. I can't do anything else, and I'm only volunteering to do it once. But to prove that I'm not a hypocrite, I will stand right next to you if you ask me. So keep pointing out double standards. If you see something, bullying, hazing, exploitation, racism, sexism happening in your job, it's scary, but call it out when it happens. Call it out, especially if it's in front of people, because if you make that first move to call it out, some of the other people around you are most likely going to rally around you, and something will be done because there'll be witnesses. But there's, in a lot of different professions, there's different procedures you have to go through for filing complaints or getting investigations. I suggest you do them. You know, Talk to people you trust. There's always going to be some people that want to do the right thing, but somebody has to have the bravery and integrity to do it first. And my utmost respect for all the women in the Me Too movement who have come forward. As I said, your bravery gave me the courage to, well, not really to tell my story, but to go on the news. I wouldn't have done that if not for your example, and I truly mean that. So anybody who speaks out against anything, remember, you're doing the right thing. They're going to try to treat you like a criminal just because they want to protect the status quo and, their image of the company or county government or film studio, whatever it may be, is only worried about their PR image. And a lot of times they have no empathy for victims. And nothing will change unless truth is told and it's brought public and they can't sweep it under the rug anymore. As always, INFJs and ENFJs, never sell out your integrity. Do the right thing, damn the cost. And I'll catch you next time.